Hello everyone, this is Outstar and welcome to another Cyberpunk video. First of all, I want to thank you all for all the support I received under my gameplay recreation video. As you could see, it was very much different than my Cyberpunk introduction and locations video. And that's because it was non-scripted and it was all recorded on the first take. For a long time I was under the impression that people want the serious content only. And I wanted to combine actual information with something more laid back and funny. And your reaction was so good and this really lifts me up a lot. So today I have another Cyberpunk video prepared for you, but this one is a little bit more informative and it's supposed to teach you something about Cyberpunk lore in general. But don't worry guys, I didn't script it as well, it's going to be the same mess. So I want to prepare you for the character creation for Cyberpunk, but this time we're scratching all the visuals. No more scars, no more tattoos, we're talking about the actual character abilities, attributes, and skills. I'm going to leave the cyberware and implants for the Psycho Squad and Psychosis video. I think there's one very interesting topic in there in general, about the things which were in the book but weren't used in the game. There's a lot of game design going into that, and I hope I'll be able to explain you why I personally think this was the case. So let's kick it off with the attributes, but don't worry, I'm going to talk about the classes a little bit later in the video. Let's start with the character attributes. This may be known for you if you played any other RPG games that have strength, dexterity, stamina, and stuff like that. The thing about the attributes in Cyberpunk 2077 game is that they are different than the ones that are in the book. At least just a little bit different. There are some of those that made it into the game and some of those that didn't, and I'll be talking about the first one first and then why the others didn't make it to the game. So the one that people saw in the demo are strength, and now strength is not an attribute in the Cyberpunk 2020 system, it's actually a skill, and a very cool one too, the one that allows you to bend rods, break fisticuffs, and be terrifying to your opponents. The book does a really good job in explaining the levels of strength. So for example, level 2 strength allows you to crush cans, rip thin books in half. At level 8, no phone book is safe, you can also bend thin bars and snap handcuffs. At level 10, well, you can bend prison bars and rip up the Gutenberg Bible. Oh god, this drawing is way more terrifying than I thought it would be. Next attribute is Constitution, and Constitution is not in the book at all. As far as I know, I was trying to find it, I have a book in Polish, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, basically Constitution is kind of like your health, your stamina, your endurance in combat. How quickly you heal from damages that you get, stuff like that. It's all the speculation, but we saw Constitution being there in other games, so we can more or less assume what it is about. Next we have Intelligence. And Intelligence is a measure of your problem-solving skills, figuring things out, noticing stuff around you, remembering information. And in Cyberpunk, it's very much needed for netrunners the most, but it doesn't mean that every character who is not a netrunner doesn't have to be intelligent. This is one of these systems where intelligence is very crucial for almost every character playing in there, unlike some other systems. Reflexes, or its abbreviation REF, it's a combined index covering not only your basic dexterity, but also how your level of physical coordination will affect feats of driving, piloting, beating people up, and athletics. It's needed the most in combat, so any combat-driven characters like solos will use this one the most. The next one is Tech, and Tech is an index of how well you relate to hardware and other technically oriented things. You use tech for fixing, repairing, and attempting to use unfamiliar technology. So characters with a high level tech can, for example, tell you how this magical thing works. It's a cassette that you put in the car stereo if you have one of these old ones with the tapes in there, and you plug this one to your phone and it actually plays MP3s from your phone on your speakers. How does it work? I have no idea, please explain. Tech is actually very needed for a lot of characters as well, because you will find a lot of items to break or fix in the game, but techies should use tech the most. Next one is Cool, and Cool means two things. First of all, it relates how well the character stands up to stress, fear, pressure, physical pain, and or torture. It determines your willingness to fight despite wounds or your fighting ability under fire. It also measures how cool you appear to others. So it's cool as it's, stoic and calm, but it's also cool as you're actually relatively cool or super cool. Now these are the final attributes that are in the game according to people who saw the demo, but there are also more of them in the Cyberpunk 2020 book that didn't make it into the game, and it's fun to talk about why not. First of all, we have attractiveness, and I bet that attractiveness got merged with cool in the game, but it's kinda funny how the pen and paper system deviates attractiveness from being cool, as you can be cool but not attractive, and attractive but not cool. Just like these two guys. I mean, he's still attractive for me, but you know. Next one is movement allowance, the MA. And the movement allowance measures how fast can you traverse the map in the short amount of time. For example, morbidly obese characters cannot walk as fast as very slim ones. The lack of that in the game means that whatever you will do in the character creation, it will probably not affect your movement allowance. Now this may be a speculation, but yes, that means that you will be able to play Big Smoke and run as fast as the normal V. Last but not least, there's empathy, and there is a big controversy around this one. I will talk a little bit more about it in my cyberware and cyberpsychosis video, but empathy is very crucial for Cyberpunk, and I'm quite sure it will be in the game. A lot of journalists said that there will be no empathy in the game whatsoever just because they didn't see it in the character creation. I think empathy will be more of a story-driven thing. Depending on your choices in the game, you may become less or more human. It's a huge topic and I love to talk about it more in the next video, but just because empathy is not in the character creation and you can't buff it manually by adding +1 to it, doesn't mean that it won't make it to the game. But just in another form. Not in a mathematical form, but more of a story-driven form. Okay, so these are the attributes that we have in the game, and these ones are those that didn't make the cut. And I told you that for solos, the most important ones will be strength and the reflexes, for techies it will be tech and intelligence, and for netrunners it will be intelligence, and probably a little bit of tech as well. But from what I've said so far, you probably know that all of these will be useful for all of the characters. And now you heard me talking about the solo, techie, and the netrunner, and you probably wonder, okay, but what are these? These are character roles in the Cyberpunk 2020 book, and the roles that will be in the Cyberpunk 2077, not as something to choose at the beginning of the game, but more like a skill trees that you can pick some stuff from. In the game you can mix them up together as much as you want, but I think it's important to approach it with knowing what you really sign for. So I'm going to explain what these classes are in the best way I can, using Photoshop. Let's take the first character role. Imagine that you are a little guy called Dominic. Dominic is going to school, the Cyberpunk school, and he's your typical little nerd character bullied by the guy called Fred. Dominic tries to escape Fred's bullying by running fast home after school and visiting fantasy worlds in which he can isolate himself from the real world. In these virtual lands, Dominic can be someone he cannot be in the real life. And also he has a girlfriend called XX Lacrimosa XX. The best friend of Dominic at school is this weird guy called Louis. Louis is 7 years older and he stays in the same grade forever, and one day he finally gets suspended from school for bringing in a self-made digital clock to a lesson that turns out to be actually a bomb and kills the class hamster Teddy. Press F to pay respects for Teddy. So when Louis is expelled and Dominic doesn't have anyone to back him in school, he gets bullied even more, which caused mom of Dominic to intervene. She finds the situation at school unacceptable and decides that Dominic is going to be homeschooled. Now this is actually a pretty good situation for Dominic because he can focus on what matters in his life the most. He finally meets XX Lacrimosa XX in real life and turns into a real man. Unfortunately, she lands in jail for 7 years, so he remains alone again. But Dominic is a grown man now, and he can explore the virtual realities without the help of Lacrimosa. After watching numerous of YouTube movies about dark web and learning how to hack people on Quora, he finally installs Tor, and this is how his journey as a hacker begins. Now there's something I didn't tell you about the internet in this world. It's not exactly the same as in ours, where we just watch the screen and click on buttons and text and something happens. In Cyberpunk world, the net is actually a place. You can explore it, you can travel through it, there are real life distances in there, and you can connect your own body to it to explore it with all your senses. All your senses. Yeah, Dominic is obviously a netrunner. Very interesting role in Cyberpunk 2020, which allows you to not only explore the net, but also craft it to your own purposes. You can alter it, you can destroy it, but you do it all looking super cool, so that's the most important thing. Okay, so now that you know who netrunner is, let's go to a second role. Imagine that you are Lewis. As you remember, you dropped out of school because you killed hamster Teddy with your self-made bomb. Press F to pay respects for Teddy. But there's only one downside of that. You can't prank Fred by putting your self-made turrets on the way out of the boys' bathroom. So instead you make money by selling very special self-made drug to him made of marjoram and oregano. Your old friend Dom visits you as well, right now working as a hacker for a big corporation, and he often talks how much he hates his job. You give him an idea to blow the building up, and he asks you if he can commission making a bomb from you. Fun fact is that the dialogue in between Dominic and Lewis is actually in the book. No problem, at least you got a simple job. Last guy in here, he wanted me to build him a cyber hand that had a built-in... Oh frack, you don't wanna know. People want the weirdest stuff these days. Wait, what? Did you say frack? Anyway, Lewis has a very cool life right now. People give him all sorts of stuff to upgrade, which ultimately makes him a lot of money that he can spend on his new Matrix cosplays.
Nigel, a runner.
Null pointer, runner.
Stevens, agent.
Simon, a runner.
Freeman, 713. I am a sentinel.
Lewis is obviously a techie. Techies construct, repair, fix, and destroy things. There's also a subclass for the techie called the med techie. If you remember this doctor guy who was fixing V and implanting her a new eye in my gameplay demo, this guy is actually a med techie. They're cool, they get rich, and oh boy, I am going to play as this one in the game. Alright, so now that you know who techie and netrunner are, it's time for the third one. Imagine that you're a Fred. Fred goes to school and finally he realizes the only two things he's good at is playing origin games and beating people up. Eventually his teachers realize it as well, and he drops out of the school to become a mercenary. A cyber... you get the drill. Being a mercenary for a corporation is a pretty popular but also a very dangerous job. Freddy really wanted to become Jason Statham, but unfortunately the gunfight in this game is quite realistic. The system called Friday Night Firefight describes on how the combat works in Cyberpunk 2020. And how it works is it actually makes weapons deadly. I know, weird, right? There's no such thing as hit points, so it's not like you can receive tons of bullets in your chest and stay alive. What makes the system actually cool for action sequences is that you don't drop dead immediately because you have ways to avoid the bullets. At first Fred was getting hurt and hurt a lot, but then after a few surgeries and implants or transplants, he realized he can advance his chances in the battle by applying a lot of cyberware to his body. Mercenaries in the world of Cyberpunk are slowly becoming cyborgs, because their own bodies are just not capable enough of withstanding so many fights. At one mission, Fred unfortunately fails. He's being shot by his enemy and he dies. And now, okay, you might think this is a joke, alright? But this is not a joke, it's actually in the book. When your character dies in Cyberpunk 2020, you have to roll Hollywood overacting effects table. Fred rolled 5, so he stared stupidly at his wound and then fell. Scavengers came to pick up his body and sell it for parts. As I told you in one of my previous videos, parts, and that means both implants and actual body parts, they sell very well, so scavenging the bodies is very popular. And that was the end of our Freddy. Freddy is the last class that comes into Cyberpunk 2077's skill system. A solo. Mercenary, murderer, assassin, in general a cool person with a gun. So to sum it up very quickly, we have a solo, a techie, and a netrunner. In the book, all of these three and the other roles which didn't make it to the game have their special skills. Now, important thing is that this is not confirmed to be in the game, okay? This is only in Cyberpunk 2020, and I'm just going to tell you which skills these people have and which ones I think might actually end up in the game. So Solo has the combat sense, and combat sense is something that game design would really like. It's the ability to perceive hidden dangers, like traps and, you know, if someone is going to shoot you from that side or this side. It's kind of like a combat intuition, and it's being explored as a topic in a lot of other games, so I can clearly see it happening in the Cyberpunk 2077 as well. Techie has two special abilities, depending if it's a techie or a med techie. In Cyberpunk 2077, it's going to be one class, so I'm going to tell you both. One is Jury Rig, and Jury Rig allows you to fix things temporarily. If an item breaks, you can apply a quick fixes to that, and the higher the level of your Jury Rig is, the longer this item will stay fixed. This also sounds like something that can easily be made into the game, so I would assume it can actually make it there. Next one is Medical Tech, and Medical Tech allows you to perform surgeries and craft drugs. Now, I'm not really sure about the surgeries, but in terms of healing yourself and crafting some drugs and bandages or anything like that for your own character, this seems to be something that will be explored in the game as well. Netrunners have the interface. It doesn't sound super cool, but actually it is. All other characters can explore the net. They can go into it, they can see what's inside, but only Netrunners can use the interface, which can alter the virtual world. This is hard words, guys. How this is going to work in the game, I have no idea. What we know from the gameplay demo is that there was actually a panel on the doors which you could hack. So I guess the Netrunner abilities will be connected with hacking, some simple stuff like that. But about going to the net itself and doing some stuff inside and other characters not being able to do that, that will be interesting. We can only assume how they're going to do this, but I found it pretty scary from a design perspective. It's going to be super cool if they're going to do it, but I don't know how. There are tons of other skills in the pen and paper game, and I picked few of those that I feel may actually land in the CD Projekt RED game. One of them is endurance, which can be interpreted in two ways. This can be stamina, so, you know, the movement in battle that you have at the particular moment that you can know from Dark Souls or Witcher 3 or any other game like that. But endurance means a lot of things. Endurance means how long can you withstand without food, water, sleep, other things. Now, I'm not saying that Cyberpunk 2077 is going to have survival elements. They dropped eating for living in Witcher 3 for a reason, but I wonder how with the day-night cycle the sleeping is going to work and stuff like that. You know, we don't have to meditate like in Witcher 3, so this has to be explored somehow. Maybe with the level ups actually. Who knows. Next one is personal grooming, and you may laugh at this, but this is actually super important in this universe. You have to look good for others to perceive you well. The way you look is very important for the conversations, for persuading people, for seducting people, and also for intimidating them. We know already that the various clothing that V was wearing in the gameplay demo, some of that can give you the street cred, which allows you to be cooler for other people. We also saw that girl in the trailer who was applying mascara over her face, so I would assume something like personal grooming is going to appear in the game as well. Next one is intimidation and interrogation, and why this picture? Because the book itself says that when you have intimidation on level 6, you can intimidate Sylvester Stallone. Yeah. And on level 9 you can actually intimidate Arnold Schwarzenegger. This clearly implies that the book is shit and doesn't know anything about Arnie, because Arnie's intimidation level is like 16. Yeah. Next one is Streetwise. Streetwise allows you to talk to shady people and not die, but also gets cool stuff from them and maybe even a lot of reputation and work for them. It's like a special kind of persuasion, but meant for shady people. You know how to get through those dark alleys without dying and people actually respect you. Maybe you are the one who mocks others. I think that would be pretty fun to be implemented in the game, and I bet something like this is going to happen. Next one is seduction. Well, obviously we have romances confirmed, so seduction has to make the way there. Shadow track, there are going to be apparently some stealth elements, so shadow and tracking is going to probably somehow make it to the game. Now, important thing is, shadow and track works only in the urban areas. If there's any way we can traverse outside of the Night City, the skill would be called the Wilderness Survival. And Wilderness Survival covers tracking and hiding from threats like fucking cazadors. I hate those motherfuckers. There are a lot of other ones like persuasion, fast talk, education, programming, gamble, dodging, driving, weaponsmithing, cybertech, electronics. You know, there are tons of skills in the game itself, and I'm sure the designers of CD Projekt RED worked for months to actually give us proper skill trees that will be usable in the game. So that's the info in the pill, but as a lot of you noticed, there are no other classes that were used in Cyberpunk 2020. A lot of you ask, where is Media, where is Rocker, where's the Nomad? And honestly, I did spend a lot of time with the book in the last few days, and I was studying all the skills that Nomads, Rockers, and Media have, and I think I know the reasons why they weren't so keen on implementing that. I'd love to make another video about it because it's a broader topic, but in general, skills that these characters possess would be very hard to match into the game design. I'm thinking about doing another video about that because I think it's an interesting topic on why exactly these classes' roles weren't featured. Let me know if you guys will be into that, but as for now, I will say goodbye. I really hope that you will watch my next video about cyberpsychosis and implants, and yes, I'm going to talk about sexual implants as well. I know a lot of people are talking about these. And another video about my personal past and my past with CD Projekt RED is coming as well, so I hope you guys will enjoy them. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you won't get lost in the Night City. Goodbye.